Who was Harry Houdini? Who was Harry Houdini? Most people know that he was a famous magician. But did you know that he was also a movie star, a pilot, an acrobat, and a writer? Harry Houdini, pronounced Houdini, didn't even really like the word magician. He preferred to call himself an escape artist. He said he could break out of anything. Handcuffs, jail cells, straitjackets, chains, padlocked boxes, iron cages, anything. People challenged Houdini to escape from all sorts of weird things, in all sorts of weird places, and he always succeeded. Why do people still find him so fascinating? For one thing, a lot of what he did has never been done by anyone else. Many of his tricks are still mysteries, and he told so many fantastic stories about his life that sometimes it's hard to know what was true and what wasn't. We also don't know why he did all the crazy and dangerous things he did. Was it to impress people? Was it because he thought it would make him rich? Or was it because he wanted to be the best in the world at something, and he wanted the world to know it? Harry Houdini was certainly a very talented escape artist. More importantly, he was determined. What Houdini wanted, Houdini got. And Houdini wanted attention. Lots of it. In a time before television and movies, Harry Houdini became famous all over the world. Everybody knew who he was. He made sure of that. Can you imagine somebody getting famous today without using TV, computers, or movies? But being famous was very important to Houdini, and his dream came true. Even now, more than 75 years after his death, he is still the most famous magician who ever lived. Chapter 1. So You Want to Be an American. The year was 1886. A 12-year-old boy stood at the platform at the train station. He was small but muscular and tough-looking, with dark hair, bright blue-gray eyes, and a frown on his face. He was not where he meant to be. He had hopped on a train in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, several hundred miles to the north. His plan was to get to Texas, where he thought the train was going. Along the way, he had sent his mother a postcard. But this was not Texas. The sign on the platform clearly said, Kansas City, Missouri. Somehow, he ended up on the wrong train. And now here he was, hundreds of miles and several states away from Texas. What could he do? He'd have to make the best of it. After all, he had run away from home so he could earn more money for his family. He planned to run errands, shine shoes, do any jobs he could find. Surely he could do that just as well in Missouri as he could in Texas. So off he went to town, looking for a place to sleep. In the years to come, this boy would travel a lot farther than Kansas City, Missouri. The nickels and dimes he planned to bring home to his family would one day be hundreds and thousands of dollars. But then, at that point, the young shoeshine boy could have never imagined that one day he'd be a world-famous magician. He had trouble just earning enough money to eat. Harry Houdini's childhood is full of stories that may or may not be true. He was born on March 24th, 1874, in Budapest, Hungary. His real name was Erich Weiss. But during his lifetime, Harry always said that his birthday was April 6th, because that is what his mother told him. And sometimes he said he was born in America, depending on which reporter he was talking to. In those days, many people in Europe thought of America as a magical place where all their problems would be solved. Thousands came to the United States from Europe, hoping to make a new start in life. And lots of money, too. Harry's father was one of them. His name was Mayor Samuel Weiss, and he was a rabbi, a teacher of Jewish religion. It was hard to be a Jew living in Hungary, where people and laws treated them like second-class citizens, and it was difficult to get a job. The Weiss family was very poor. Samuel thought that perhaps he could do better in America. After all, people called it the land of opportunity. So in 1876, when Erich was 2 years old, Samuel left his wife and sons in Hungary. Although he did not speak to a word of English, he set off for America, on the other side of the ocean. It took him 2 years to save enough money to bring over his family. Can you imagine what a trip must have been like? First, Harry's mother, Cecilia, and her 4 sons would have to get from Hungary to a port city. From there, they would board a ship, along with as many as 2,000 other people bound for America. Big ships like these took anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to cross the Atlantic Ocean. The passengers had to deal with the crowded conditions and limited food. For the rest of his life, Houdini hated traveling by boat. The Statue of Liberty now stands in New York City's harbor, welcoming newcomers to the United States. But it wasn't built yet when Erich and the Weiss family arrived. America was a bit strange new world. And now it was Erich's new home. Unfortunately, life wasn't much easier in the United States. From New York, the Weisses went to live in Wisconsin, first in a small town called Appleton, and later in the city of Milwaukee. When he was only 8 years old, Erich started working to help pay the bills. He sold newspapers, shined shoes, and ran errands. At age 9, he also had his first starring act in a backyard circus that put together with his friends. He called himself the Prince of the Air and did stunts on a homemade trapeze hung from a tree. Later, he made up stories for the reporters about this time. He would rather either say he had been in a real traveling circus as a boy, or that he was already performing in his famous escapes at age 9. The truth is that he wasn't really interested in magic yet. But he liked the aerobatics and the applause. Not much is known about Erich's adventures as a runaway, except that he definitely left home for a while when he was 12. He may have run away from home more than once, even though he loved his family very much. He always planned to return once he had some money. Living and traveling on his own made Erich resourceful and clever. So when Samuel moved to New York City in 1887, hoping for better luck there, he picked 13-year-old Erich to take with him, even though he wasn't the oldest son. Together they raised enough money so that the rest of the family could join them. But Samuel Weiss died in 1892, leaving his wife with 6 children to take care for. Still, Erich was sure he could help out his family. America had not been the land of opportunity for his father, but Erich was determined that it would be for him. Also, before he died, his dad made Erich a promise something, to always take care of his mother. Erich took any promise very seriously, and this one most of all. For the rest of her life, Cecilia Weiss could depend on her truant son. There was one story about his childhood that Harry Houdini loved to tell in later years. Whether or not it's true, it certainly sounds like his style. One day in December, while Erich was working as a messenger boy, he had an idea. He wrote out a card and stuck it to his hat. The words on the card were, "Christmas is coming, turkeys are fat. Please drop a quarter in the messenger boy's hat." Lots of people laughed and gave him quarters. That night when he got home, he hid all the quarters in his hair and his clothes. Then he went to his mother and said, "Shake me, I'm magic." So she did. Quarters came flying out and went rolling all over the place, like magic. Then, when he was about 16, Erich came across a book called The Memoirs of Robert Houdin, ambassador, author, and conjurer, written by himself. It was the autobiography of a very famous 19th century French magician. It was full of fantastic stories. Erich was hooked. Robert Houdin. Before Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, 1805 to 1871, magic shows were performed in outdoor markets or on street corners. Robert Houdin made magic into an art by doing tricks no one had thought of before. He used new scientific developments in his tricks. He had started off as a clockmaker. Like Harry Houdini, Robert Houdin was very modern. He studied electromagnetism so he could use powerful magnets to move objects around the stage. Robert Houdin was also really clever at promoting himself. His autobiography, published in 1857, was full of exaggerations and wild stories. His skill and style, however, were so successful that even today Robert Houdin is still considered to be the father of modern magic. If Robert Houdin could become so famous through magic, then Erich Weiss could too. But he'd need a catchy stage name. His family called him Airy, short for Erich. That sounded like Harry. And Houdin was the name that already made people think of magic. So, Harry added an I to the end, and ta-da! Harry Houdini was born.